Hey everyone.
Hoi! Sorry, couldn't help myself. Hello, person with a mic dug directly from the freshest, crispiest of potato farms. How are you? Who are you? And what are you doing on my internet?
Today I'm going to show you one more piece of evidence that totally falsifies evolution, yet again.
Oh my giddy Goddington, you are going to totally falsify evolution with just one piece of evidence. Wow, that's just so much wrong. With that sentence alone, it's hard to know where to start. First off, the fact that you think it has happened at all is frankly wild. Evolution is just fine, even though you seem to think you have done this multiple times apparently. And secondly, if you think one piece of evidence could falsify any well-established, rigorously tested scientific field, I can only assume that you don't know much about science. And, well, your channel is literally called Young Earth Creation, so I think we already know the answer to that little question, don't we, pal?
And how our model far better explains the data.
Far better? Cool. I mean, that means your model will be extremely good at predicting things, right? You will and should have already essentially guessed certain scientific findings before they happened, right? And not that evolutionary biology does that, proves it, and then you stumble in drunkenly on its coattails and scream, "That was our idea! You just stole it before we could come up with it!" Just like me and my mate Steve. It was me who invented apples, not him.
You see, there are two major views when it comes to answering the diversity of life question.
No, there isn't. There's one explanation, and then there's a bunch of people who are far too stupid and deluded to understand that you can't answer science questions with books written by people who didn't know where the fucking sun came from and think that light existed on Earth before it did. Not smart people.
Young Earth creation and deep time evolution. We both have the exact same evidence, but view them entirely different.
Yeah, we use it all, and you ignore it if it goes against your preconceived notions. We change our conclusions when new evidence shows up, and you hammer new evidence into shape to fit into your unchanging conclusion, or again, just ignore it, or you'll just make stuff up. For some reason, one of these methods is really good at explaining reality, and one of them is fucking stupid Bible bullshit. Oh, wait, spoilers, sorry.
So I ask you to set aside emotion and just look at the data, what it shows, and make up your own mind based on the evidence and nothing else.
Okay, but I'm already doing that. I have no emotional attachment to evolution. Why would I? It's simply a fact about reality. It has no influence on my opinions about anything other than how do we explain the things it explains. Now, if my worldview was impacted by my explanation for something being wrong, then I might be emotionally invested. If, say, everything I believe was based on a single book, and then parts of that book turned out to be wrong, and I didn't want that to be the case, I guess I could get real emotional about it. But thankfully, no one in this interaction is doing that now, right?
I am going to show you why our view of the past is far better than evolution.
Well, I don't know about your big list of, look, we am correct, because we say we am correct, and how that goes into this, but let me put it this way. If two people say they can explain a car accident, and one says ghosts did it, and will use as much of the evidence they can to explain it, and ignore anything that doesn't fit with that, and someone else starts with, I don't know, but will give an explanation that accounts for all the evidence, because that's what it's based on, who do you think is more likely to be right?
And how it not only better answers what we see, but solves the paradoxes that evolution theory runs into.
Paradoxes, eh? Such as? Or is it that you just say they have paradoxes and then not explain them? You know, it's that, or the paradoxes are, I made something up about what evolution says and it doesn't make sense. Look how smart my big Brian is.
Let me break it down for you this way.
The only breakdowns that I want are the ones that go into an absolutely disgusting amount of bass guitar and loud face noises.
When we look into the mitochondria, we go to a specific region called the CO1 gene compartment, also known as cytochrome C. We find that the region is highly conserved, but still accrues mutations rather quickly.
mutations happen, but I thought God made humans the way they are on purpose and did it perfectly because of how amazing he is. And of course, as we all know, mutations cannot be explained by evolution at all, because they could never, change something and make it slightly different, and then those differences build up over time. No.
When mutations do arise, they do not always mutate in the same spot. This is really good, because it allows us to know what sequences have mutated and which ones have not. Therefore, we can know exactly what are mutations and what are not mutations, so we know what the original sequence looked like.
Original sequence? What are you talking about? Are you claiming there's a default human layout? Because that would be a heck of a thing to prove, especially when we know that humans evolved from their ancestors about 300,000 years ago. So some original sequence just sounds like nonsensical gibberish, and I can only assume is either you not understanding what you're looking at or just plain lying about it. But of course, creationists never lie unless they have to defend the quote-unquote truth. So, constantly.
So, how does all this fit together?
Well, you see, what you do is this. You take your conclusions and you stick them up your arse. And no, I'm not being facetious. I'm just trying to be helpful. Because, most of the nonsense you guys say seems to be pulled out of your arse, so it just makes sense to keep it all together. You're welcome.
Well, it comes down to predictions.
It was Nathaniel Jensen who predicted that if we looked in the mitochondria, that we would find nowhere near the amount of mutations expected if 7 million years of time had passed. That was predicted in 2015 and published in 2017 in his book Replacing Darwin.
Whoa. Published? In his book. Not published in a peer-reviewed academic paper, which could and would be scrutinized by the scientists whose field he was sticking his nose into, and would inevitably be shown to be bunk. It's published in a book that dipshits will then go and buy and bandy about like it's actual science, and how science is done, and he gets to make a bunch of money while doing at best nothing to progress any science, and at worst holding the science back as morons are convinced by how right they are and push their bullshit further into the world. Fan-fucking-tastic.
So the predictions were laid out and in print.
In print, I suppose. In papers, no. It's weird how that's always the case with people who aren't doing real science. That for some reason, they refuse to engage with the science, how the science works. And I know some morons are going to be like, well, the scientists won't allow them to do things that question the science. And no, idiots, you can absolutely do that. But what you can't do is bad science over and over and over again, and then expect everyone to just say, well, that's just as likely to be true as things that are actually based in reality. It's not censorship to be told to fuck off when you refuse to stop being wrong.
Now it was time to test which model made the best prediction. Over time, mutations build up in the mitochondria. If deep time evolution is true, then we would expect to find the mitochondria completely saturated in mutations. If young Earth creation is true, then we would only find a few mutations.
I don't know, if young Earth creation were true, the fact that you find any at all seems to go against it. Mutations should not exist in a world created to be a specific way by a perfect deity, since that doesn't make any sense. Also, this is all assuming that any of this is true. Is the amount of mutations found unexpected? Is the amount he says true? It's hard to find any research based on these specific predictions because, well, he didn't put it where the research goes for some reason. Almost like he doesn't actually want it scrutinized by the people who actually know what they're talking about. Weird, that.
This is based on how fast the mutation rate in this region is, and we would expect to find 21,457 mutations would have built up in this region over that amount of time. This means we should find complete mutation saturation of 12,000 mutations in the mitochondria.
Right, let's ignore the fact that I have no idea where this is supposed to come from or if it's true, since I'm not reading, or more importantly, buying that guy's books. And apparently you provide absolutely no scientific papers for some reason. How strange that you wouldn't, or more likely couldn't, provide any. But let's look at the numbers you have provided. What the fuck is any of this shit? 21,457. An extremely specific number predicted over 4.5 to 17 million years. That makes literally zero sense. If this was approximate or like a range, I wouldn't have a problem, but an incredibly specific number for a time scale that is 1 to 4 times itself. Explain to me, like I'm stupid, because I am, how that could possibly make any sense. Also, your quote-unquote model is that of 6,000 years, which is like 0.13% of the lower number, meaning that your prediction should be like 1, maybe 2.
We are not even remotely close to equilibrium.
And there's the fact that the 4.5 million still doesn't make sense if we're talking about humans, because again, they've only been around for 300,000 years, which for some reason is almost exactly on the fucking money. Now bear in mind, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I find it an extremely bizarre coincidence considering this is based on your numbers, except for, the correct ones for actual human timescale. The number for humanity that actually comes from science.
I decided to run these same numbers on a highly conserved region of the mitochondria called the CO1 gene.
Did you? Because I'm not sure I believe you did shit. I mean, are you going to show us your work? Or are you going to tell us how you did this thing that you then claim totally proves you right? Please, please, please ignore the man behind the curtain.
And I got the exact same results. Nowhere near the amount of mutations have occurred and nowhere near mutation saturation.
Again, I don't know where you got your numbers, but if we base them on human timeline, that probably works. But what do I know? That's right, nothing, because you haven't fucking given me anything to work from but a book by someone who's talking shit outside of his expertise and some numbers that don't seem to mean anything, at least not in the context that you have presented them.
We find a fast mutation rate and few mutations. This can only mean one thing. Young Earth creation is true, and the genetic evidence supports this.
The fact that that is your conclusion is the strongest evidence of all that you have absolutely no idea what you are talking about, and at best are looking for things that you think support your conclusion. Because if you really understood anything about science, you would never ever say this can only mean one thing. Because evidence can mean loads of things. I mean, let's assume that everything you have said is true. It could mean several things at the very least. It could mean that some aspect of evolutionary biology needs to be reevaluated. It could mean that some other thing that is not evolution or creation could be true. It could mean that you're a fucking idiot who doesn't know how to do science. Oh wait, no, we're talking about things it could be, not absolute facts. Sorry about that.
This was discovered in 2018 in the Rockefeller University study that showed clear genetic boundaries.
Right, Dipwit here just says and shows this out of context to the whole quite long article, and this is not what the article is about. And the implication that you are making is one that works fine in evolution anyway. That being that there could be some quote-unquote boundaries between species, although it still says 90%, not all of them. So again, it doesn't really say the thing you want to trick your audience into thinking it says. Well, you're just too stupid to understand it. Anyway, yes, in evolution, species could still have large differences between each other, which they, often do, and still have evolved. And again, even if they somehow couldn't, that still wouldn't mean that your God though answer was the correct one, because that's not how science works. False dichotomies are false for a reason.
And in that same study, we noticed when we look at humans, we find up to 10 mutations have occurred in this region in some people. When we look at chimpanzees, we find the average is about 65 mutations. So now,
in that study. It's weird that what you showed was an article, didn't name the study, and it doesn't contain those charts for some reason. This is so baffling. If I didn't know any better, I would have to assume you are intentionally misleading people with this video into thinking that one thing shows another. Also, the article itself has no citations. So even if something came from the research that you're talking about, I won't be able to find it without some incredibly extensive searching that we both know no one is going to do, although personally I don't actually need to, since I'm basing my conclusions on the things you say and show. But wouldn't it be nice if you shared with the class? There only seems to be one reason I can think of why you wouldn't, and it's not because of how you're so honest.
Let's use the evolutionary timeline and take that back. Not just 200,000 years, when they believe that there was a global ice age that caused a bottleneck to occur, but let's keep going. Back 6 to 7 million years to this elusive split between the human and chimpanzee line.
By the way, in case you didn't know, well, I have to assume you don't know anything, 6 million years ago, humans weren't humans, right? They were in fact something quite different, and the common ancestors of humans and chimpanzees would not have been humans or chimpanzees. So the way you're framing it is just a little bit ridiculous, although not surprising.
Look at how many mutations would have occurred over that vast amount of time. There's plenty of time for there to be tons of differences between us and them, yet there are so few.
What a confusing point. Because species with common ancestors are similar but different, therefore evolution can't be true? Also, let's argue that humans and chimpanzees are barely different. So what? That's perfectly acceptable within an evolutionary framework. Things change over time, yes, but they can also not change, or change very little, because it's always been about niches. If the niche stays the same or similar, then no change is needed to fill it. But it's a bizarre argument even with that, since plenty of species are wildly different, and we know they have changed massively. It's almost like we expect variation in the variations.
They have even admitted that this paradox is perplexing to them. We can read it right here. Unlike our closest genetic relatives, chimps, all humans have virtually identical DNA.
That's not a paradox. Humans haven't been around as long as the other things you are showing, you fucking goof. So of course we wouldn't expect the same differences between our closest ancestors and the difference between the same fucking species. Although they are there, it's like you're deliberately trying to be obtuse as humanly possible.
In fact, one group of chimps can be more genetically diverse than all 6 billion humans alive today.
No shit, Sherlock. That's because humans don't have any fucking subspecies, you absolute galaxy melt. Jesus Christ, what is actually wrong with you? Even I know that shit, and I'm not sitting here pretending that I can destroy entire scientific fields with my complete lack of competence and inability to honestly analyze the facts about anything.
It is thought we split from a common ancestor with chimpanzees 5 to 6 million years ago, which is more than enough time for substantial genetic differences to develop.
More than enough time does not mean that they have to. If you knew anything about evolution, you would know that. But weirdly, the creationist doesn't know shit about evolution. What a shocking shock.
Wait, before you go, I have something super important to tell you. It's life or death. It will change everything forever. Nope, wait, it's gone. Oh well, probably wasn't important. But while I have you, don't forget to comment, subscribe and notify. And if you want more of my smexy voice, check out Mrs. Six's channel Spoonstaff Stories, where I narrate and voice all the videos, and she does the work. And if you want to support the channel, check out the merch store for cool t-shirts, or check out Patreon, memberships and PayPal to support directly. Finally, follow me on the medias of social to get completely pointless guff and to keep up on the latest releases. Oh, I just remembered what I was going to tell you. Whatever you do, don't touch the